My name is May, and I am 63 years old. There is a small wooden table by my window where the light comes in quietly every morning, and it's at that table that I begin each day with a cup of tea in silence. I never used to notice the quiet so much, but lately it has become the only thing that feels truly mine. I live alone in a modest house on the south side of town. The walls are thin, the floor creaks in the hallway, and the bathroom tap drips unless I twist it just right. But it's clean, and it's mine. For the past 40 years, I've worked in people's homes, cleaning, folding, scrubbing floors that gleam by the time I'm done. In the evenings, I watch children. First for neighbors, then for the children of those children. I've been doing this kind of work for so long, my hands have learned to move without asking. I've always believed in dignity. Not the kind that comes with applause or admiration, but the quiet kind, like well-folded linens, or a freshly swept porch. I raised my daughter, Ella, by myself. Her father left when I was just 3 months pregnant. He never saw her, never asked. I don't think of him often. My world became small and bright the day Ella was born, and I filled it with work, with soup simmering on the stove, with stories before bed, and with the smell of clean laundry. I filled it with enough love for both of us. Ella is getting married next month. She came over last weekend to show me the final fitting of her dress. She looked radiant, slim and tall like her father, but with my hands, my walk, my small teeth. Her hair was pulled back, her smile full and eager. She spun in the mirror, laughing, asking if I thought it was too simple. It wasn't. It was her. I just want everything to go smoothly, she said, smoothing the skirt over her knees. Daniel's mother is already asking about the seating chart. I smiled. I didn't tell her I had been sleeping less, or that my knees had begun to ache in the morning. I didn't mention that I was working an extra shift each week to help pay for the cake. Instead, I told her she looked beautiful. Because she did. Because it was her day. Ella and I have always been close. Or maybe I believed we were. She used to bring me drawings from school, press dandelions into my hand, say things like "You're my best friend." I still have some of those drawings in a box under my bed. I take them out sometimes when the house feels too quiet. They are crumpled, soft from years of touching. I remember one night, she must have been 9, when I came home late from work. She was waiting by the window, a glass of water in her small hand. "I stayed up to see you," she said. "I wanted to make sure you were okay." That was the first time I felt the loneliness of adulthood lift, just for a moment. Now, she's building a life with someone else. It's how it should be. I remind myself that often. Daniel, her fiancé, is a kind man. He wears buttoned shirts and always says thank you. He brings Ella coffee in the mornings, calls her love, and opens car doors for her. I like him. Or I've convinced myself I do. He is polite, careful with his words. But something in me stays alert when he's around, like a cat watching from a windowsill. Ella says they want to save up for a house. "Just a year or so living with you, Mom. We'll help with groceries. We'll be out before you know it." Of course I said yes. How could I not? This is what we dream of for our children, isn't it? That they find someone who makes them laugh in the mornings. That they need us just a little longer. That we can give them one last gift. So I cleared out the bedroom at the back of the house. Folded up old blankets, boxed away the books I used to read when Ella was young. I even dusted the corners with a wet cloth, though my wrists ached. I want them to feel welcome. I want her to feel at home. I think back to when she was small, when we used to walk past the empty storefront at the corner of 9th and Willow. One day, she'd say, "I'll have a little café right there. You'll bake muffins and I'll make the coffee and we'll put flowers on every table." I started saving then. Quietly, in an envelope at the back of the cupboard, then later in a proper account. I told myself it was for her future, but in truth, I think it was for my hope. The hope that everything I did, every floor scrubbed, every night spent folding clothes until my knuckles cracked, would someday bloom into something beautiful for her. That money still sits untouched. I haven't told her about it. Maybe I was waiting for the right moment. Maybe I was afraid she'd say she didn't need it. Or worse, that she never wanted the cafe at all. But the wedding is in 3 weeks. The invitations have been sent, the caterer paid. Ella visits less now, always rushing, always a list in her hand. Sometimes I sit by the window with my tea and wonder when she'll next call. Then I remind myself, she's building her life. And I should be proud. I am proud. But there is a quiet ache inside me. Like something once held has been gently placed down, and now my hands do not know what to do. Still, I smile when she walks through the door. I make her tea. I listen to stories about guest lists and flower arrangements. I nod at Daniel's jokes. I say, "Tell me everything." Because I want to hear. Because I want her to know I'm still here. Because I believe, perhaps foolishly, that love, once planted so deeply, must grow roots that never let go. The wedding was beautiful. It was held at a small chapel just outside of town, the kind with ivy crawling up the old stone and bells that rang softly in the breeze. Ella wore the dress she had shown me weeks earlier, simple, elegant, with lace at the sleeves. Her hair was done in soft waves, and when she walked down the aisle, she didn't look like my little girl anymore. She looked like a woman stepping into her own story. I sat in the second row, a corsage pinned to my blouse, and watched her eyes fill with light as she said her vows. Daniel looked at her like she was the only person in the room. I saw the way he reached for her hand, the way his voice trembled slightly when he said, "I do." There was music, laughter, clinking glasses. I remember the warmth of sunlight on my face during the photographs, and how Ella leaned her head on my shoulder afterward, whispering, "Thank you for everything, Mom." We danced, the 3 of us. Me with Ella, then with Daniel, awkward and smiling. I remember someone said, "You must be so proud." And I was. I truly was. That night, I went to bed with tired feet and a full heart, my cheeks still warm from the wine and the laughter. For a few days after the wedding, the world stayed golden. And then they moved in. The day they arrived was sunny and quiet. Daniel carried in boxes labeled kitchen and books, and Ella followed behind with her arms full of towels. They laughed as they moved, sharing private glances, like the world was unfolding just for them. I stood in the doorway and offered lemonade, feeling both full and strangely unnecessary. They took the back bedroom, the one I had cleared and dusted, the one where Ella once painted clouds on the ceiling when she was 12. I heard her laugh when she saw them again, faded now, but still there. "You never painted over them," she said. I shook my head. I liked looking up at them. The first week was gentle. We shared dinners. I made roast chicken and mashed potatoes. Daniel offered to do the dishes. Ella and I watched an old movie one night, her feet tucked under her like she used to do. It felt like a bridge, shaky, but still holding. Then, slowly, something began to shift. The laughter from their room began to feel closed off. My suggestions about meals or errands were met with a polite, "We've got it, thanks." I'd knock on Ella's door in the evenings to ask if she wanted tea, and she'd answer, "Maybe later," without looking up from her phone. Later never came. Daniel was always courteous. He'd say good morning, ask if I needed anything, but there was a distance in his eyes. A carefulness. Like I was someone they had agreed to tolerate, not someone they were grateful to be with. I kept the house clean. I stayed out of their way. I gave them space. One morning, I made pancakes. Ella came into the kitchen, poured coffee, and said, "Daniel doesn't really eat breakfast. And I'm trying to cut back on carbs." Then she looked at the plate in my hands and said, gently, "Maybe just make enough for yourself next time, Mom." I nodded. I smiled. I said, "Of course." But I wrapped the pancakes and put them in the fridge anyway. She used to love them. Another evening, I suggested we watch that same old movie again. Ella hesitated. Daniel doesn't really like black and white films. We could watch something else, I said. She paused. Maybe another time. We're just really tired tonight. I told myself it was fine. That it was natural. That children grow, and walls are part of that. But the quiet was heavier than before. Then came the night of the conversation. It was late. I had gone to the laundry room to fold towels. Their door was open a crack, and their voices carried, low and tired. She's always around, Daniel said. It's like we never have the place to ourselves. She means well, Ella replied. She just doesn't get that it's not just her home anymore. There was a pause. I've been looking into options, Daniel said. There's a place in Glendale. Assisted living. Clean. Nice. She'd have her own space. Would she even go? We'd have to be gentle. Ease her into it. Make it sound like it's for her. My heart didn't break. Not in that loud, cinematic way. It just slowed. I folded the towel in my hands. Perfect edges. Straight lines. I set it on top of the others and walked quietly back to my room. I didn't sleep that night. I watched the ceiling, the one without clouds. In the morning, I made tea. I sat at my small table by the window. And I listened to the silence. It was different now. Not mine. Not mercy. It was the sound of something ending. And I knew, even then, that I would not stop it. I would only choose how I would leave. I left in the morning, quietly. The sun hadn't risen yet, and the only sound in the house was the soft hum of the refrigerator. I folded a few clothes into my old suitcase, the one I used to carry Ella's baby clothes in when we moved apartments all those years ago. I didn't take much. Just enough. I didn't leave a note. Not because I wanted to hurt anyone. But because there was nothing to explain. Outside, the air smelled of dew and pavement. The taxi driver didn't ask questions. He just helped me with the suitcase and asked, "Where to, ma'am?" "Just drive for now," I said. He nodded. We passed the bakery on 5th Street. The one where I worked when Ella was a toddler. The owner, Marta, used to let me take home the day-old bread. She once offered me a place to sleep in the storeroom when I couldn't make rent. I asked the driver to stop. The bakery still smelled the same. Yeast and sugar. Marta was there, older now, grayer, but still with that sharp kindness in her eyes. She blinked when she saw me. "May?" I nodded. She hugged me. "No questions. You can stay in the room upstairs. Still have it. You want coffee?" "Please," I said. And just like that, I was somewhere new. The room was small, but clean. A narrow bed. A window that looked out onto a fire escape. The walls were pale blue. I sat on the bed and let the stillness come. It was different than the silence back home. This silence didn't press against me. It didn't accuse. It just was. For days, I did very little. I walked in the mornings. I sat in the park and watched the sparrows fight over crumbs. I went to the library. I remembered how to breathe. At night, I made tea in a chipped mug and wrote in a notebook I found in my suitcase. I didn't write to anyone. Just thoughts. Questions. Memories. Things I hadn't said out loud in years. I remembered how Ella used to sit at the kitchen table with her knees pulled up to her chest, telling me about her day. I remembered the sound of her laugh. I remembered how I had once believed that love, given long enough, would always find its way home. One afternoon, I visited the lot on 9th and Willow. The one Ella used to say would be her café. It was a chain cleaners now. Glass front. Neon sign. No room for books or muffins or painted mugs. I stood across the street for a long time. I wasn't sure what I felt. Not sadness. Not disappointment. Just a kind of release. I walked to the bank the next day. The savings account was still there. The balance surprised even me. Years of working 2 jobs. Years of saying no to myself so I could say yes to her. I stared at the paper in my hands. Then I folded it and walked out. That evening, Marta asked if I'd like a few hours at the register. I said yes. I liked the rhythm. The familiarity. The way people smiled when I handed them warm bread. The next day, I called Ms. Peterson. She answered on the second ring. May? Is everything all right? I'm okay, I said. I was wondering if I could stop by. She welcomed me in with a hug. Her children, Sophia and Eli, squealed when they saw me. Sophia showed me a loose tooth. Eli asked if I'd brought cookies. I didn't stay long. Just long enough. Before I left, I asked her if she'd sit with me at the kitchen table. I told her everything. About the wedding. The move. The night I overheard them. She listened, eyes wide, hand over her mouth. When I told her about the savings account, she started to cry. May, you can't. I can, I said. I want to. I don't have much. But what I do have, I want it to matter. We signed the first documents the following week. That night, I walked home and stood on the fire escape. The city was humming below. Somewhere in the distance, someone was playing music. A saxophone, maybe. The sound curled around me like smoke. I looked up at the sky. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel small. I felt free. The notary came to Marta's bakery one morning just after the sun had risen. We met at the back table, where the flour dust still clung to the wood in fine circles. I had brought all the necessary documents, bank statements, identification, the folder I had kept locked for 20 years. Ms. Peterson arrived with Sophia and Eli, who sat quietly in the corner with coloring books while we worked. The notary asked his questions, read everything aloud, and watched carefully as I signed my name at the bottom of the form, then again, and again. It was done quickly. No ceremony. No applause. Just ink and paper and a calm that settled in my chest like a warm hand. Afterward, Ms. Peterson stood and hugged me tightly. They'll never forget this, she said. I won't let them. I know, I replied. I went back upstairs to my small room above the bakery and sat by the window. The paper bag with my last loaf of bread rested on the table. The folder was closed now. Locked again. But for someone else's future. I stayed 2 more weeks. Marta insisted I didn't need to pay rent. I worked mornings, drank coffee in the afternoons, and walked through the park in the evenings. On Sundays, I sat in the last pew of the church and let the hymns fill my ears like soft water. Then one morning, I visited a small senior community on the edge of town. I had found it listed on a bulletin board in the library. It was called Hillshade Gardens. A quiet place. Brick buildings. A small fountain in the courtyard. I met with a kind woman named Deborah who gave me a tour. You'd have your own room, she said. There's a garden and a reading room. We host painting classes on Thursdays. The room they showed me had a window that faced east. The sunlight fell in soft rectangles on the floor. There was a narrow bed, a dresser, a small table for tea. No one will disturb you, she added. Unless you want company. That night, I thought about it. I thought about Ella. I thought about the last time she looked at me and called me mom without distance in her voice. I thought about how I had waited so long to be seen, to be loved the way I loved. I no longer needed it. In the morning, I returned and signed the forms. A week later, I packed my things. It didn't take long. The suitcase held fewer clothes now. A few books. The green folder. A jar of dried lavender. I left Marta a note. Not because there was anything to explain. Just to say thank you. I took a taxi to Hillshade Gardens. Deborah met me at the entrance and carried my bag herself. My room was clean. The sheets smelled like starch and lilacs. That evening, I sat by the window with a cup of tea. The sky outside was painted with the last light of day. Then the phone rang. It was Ella. Mom? Where are you? We've been worried. Her voice was bright but not warm. I held the phone quietly to my ear for a long moment. Then I said, somewhere quiet. She waited. Are you all right? I'm fine. I just needed a little time. When are you coming home? I looked out the window. A bird was resting on the sill. I am home, I said. There was silence on the line. I didn't feel it. Eventually, she said, well, I guess we'll talk soon. Take care, Ella. You too. The line went dead. I set the phone down. I poured more tea. Outside, the bird flew off into the dusk. And I did not cry. A month passed. The days at Hillshade Gardens were simple and slow. I woke early, read on the bench near the fountain, watered the 2 potted plants on my windowsill. Sometimes, I joined the others for knitting or painting. Sometimes, I didn't. The silence no longer felt like absence. It was presence, of myself, of peace. Then the letter came. It was early autumn. The leaves had begun to curl at the edges, dry and golden. Deborah handed me the envelope with my morning tea. From your daughter, she said gently. I looked at the handwriting. It was Ella's. Still round and hurried like when she was in school. I waited until the afternoon to open it. I sat by the window, the sun warm on my lap, and slid the paper out carefully. She wrote, Mom, I hope you're well. I don't know if this will reach you, but I needed to try. Things haven't been easy. Daniel and I are taking time apart. Maybe permanently. He took a job out of state, and I didn't follow. I've been staying with a friend, but it's temporary. I'm not writing to ask for anything. Not really. I don't know where else to go. I keep thinking about home. About you. About pancakes on Sunday and folding laundry together. I don't know what happened to me. Or maybe I do, but I was too proud to say it. If there's any space in your life for me again, even just to talk, I'd be grateful. Love. Ella. I sat with the letter for a long time. I folded and unfolded it. The ache was immediate. Not pain. But memory. The weight of all the years she had been mine. The lullabies. The scraped knees. The dreams I carried for her like fragile porcelain. She had left me. And now she asked to return. Not to the house. But to me. That night, I didn't sleep well. I walked the halls, slow and quiet. I looked at the paintings on the walls, landscapes, still lives, soft blues and greens. I made tea and drank it slowly. In the morning, I took out my stationery. Pale cream paper. A blue pen. I wrote, Dear Ella, thank you for your letter. I'm glad you reached out. I want you to know that I never stopped loving you. Even in silence, even in hurt, that part of me has never left. I am your mother. But I have found a rhythm here that is gentle and whole. I don't think I could share my life again the way I once did. Still, I would like to see you. Perhaps you could visit one afternoon. We could sit in the garden. Talk, maybe share a cup of tea. We don't need to rush anything. Let's begin quietly. With love. Mom. I sealed the envelope and handed it to Deborah to post. I didn't expect anything. Not anymore. But I believed, deeply, in the grace of a soft beginning. It was early spring when Ella came. I was sitting in the garden with a book on my lap, not reading, just feeling the sun on my face. The daffodils had started to bloom along the edge of the path. Yellow and unsure. Like they weren't ready to open, but did so anyway. I didn't hear her approach. She stood at the gate for a long moment before stepping through. She looked thinner. A little older. Her eyes carried the weight of someone who had learned something the hard way. "Hi, Mom," she said. I looked up, my heart strangely calm. "Hello, Ella." She came and sat beside me. We didn't speak for a while. The wind moved through the branches overhead, soft as breath. Then she said, "I live near Marta now. I rent a small place. It's not much, but it's mine. I work in a coffee shop nearby. Just part-time. But it helps." I nodded. "I'm glad." She glanced at me. "I didn't come to ask anything. I just wanted to see you." "I'm glad you did," I said. She looked down at her hands. "Would you like to come with me for a few days? Just to visit. It's quiet." I thought, maybe we could talk more. I didn't answer right away. But something in me softened. The part that had always stayed open, no matter what. "All right," I said. We packed that afternoon. Deborah hugged me goodbye. Ella's apartment was small, she said, as she had said. "We'll keep your room ready." A kitchenette, a narrow bed, 2 mugs in the cupboard. But it was clean. And hers. She made tea the way I used to, strong, 1 sugar. We sat at the little table and talked about small things. Weather. Books. Nothing heavy. That night, I slept in her bed. She took the couch. In the morning, she stood at the doorway with her coat in hand. "I have a shift today," she said. "Would you like to walk with me? Maybe we could have lunch after?" "I'd like that." We walked in silence through the waking streets. The sun was just high enough to touch the tops of buildings. When we turned the corner onto 9th and Willow, my breath caught. Ella kept walking, didn't notice me stop. There it was. A small café with pale green walls, a wide front window, and a wooden sign that read, "Coffee by May." I took a step closer. In the window were flower jars, books on a shelf, and a chalkboard with neat handwriting, "Today's muffins, cinnamon and apple." Ella turned and saw my face. "I didn't know," she said quickly. "Not at first. I just needed a job." I walked in, and there it was. "Sophia and Eli run it now. They hired me on the spot. They didn't even know who I was." I couldn't speak. She stepped toward me. I didn't plan this. I didn't even recognize the name until a week later. But every morning when I unlock the door, it feels like you're there. I'm sorry it took me this long to understand. I looked through the glass again. A small girl at a corner table was reading. Behind the counter, Eli wiped a tray clean. Sophia was laughing with a customer. And there, above the register, was a photograph I didn't know they had. It was me. Young, holding a tray of muffins, smiling at something just outside the frame. I didn't cry. I opened the door. And walked in. The scent of cinnamon and warm bread drifted through the café, wrapping around me like something remembered from a dream. Mornings here had their own rhythm, a slow build of light through the windows, the rustle of newspapers, the murmur of early voices. It was gentle, almost sacred. And now, somehow, it moved around me as though I belonged here. I walked slowly between the tables, letting my fingers graze the edges. The mismatched chairs, the shelf of worn books, the vases of marigolds, everything spoke in a quiet voice, as if it had been waiting for me. Sophia looked up from the counter. Her eyes widened, but her expression softened into something warm. She set down the mug she was drying. "You came," she said. I nodded, not trusting my voice. Eli stepped up from the kitchen, carrying a tray. He stopped mid-step when he saw me, then smiled, hesitant but true. There were no words at first, just the stillness between us, holding everything. I reached out and touched the wood of the counter, worn smooth with use. "I never thought I'd see this place become real," I said. Sophia walked around and gently took my hands. "You gave it form before we did. We just followed your shape." Later, I sat at the window table. Ella brought over 2 mugs of tea. Her hands trembled slightly. "I didn't recognize the name at first," she said, sitting down. "It just felt right. Familiar." I looked at her, really looked. Tired, yes. But softer. Less defended. "Sometimes," I said, wrapping my hands around the cup, "we step into something we built a long time ago, without knowing it was still there." Ella's eyes filled, though no tears fell. "Is it too late? For us?" I watched the way light touched her cheek. Outside, buds had begun to unfurl on the trees. "Time doesn't only move forward," I said. "It circles. Comes back. Lets us begin again, if we let it." We stayed there a long time. Just the warmth between us and the quiet. I didn't return to Hillshade Gardens. I found a room above the florist's shop nearby. Small, with a kettle by the window and a chair soft enough to fall asleep in. Enough for me. Each morning, I came to the cafe. Sometimes I baked. Sometimes I sat with the books. Sometimes I simply wiped tables and listened. Sophia and Eli tried to pay me. I insisted on sweeping the floor instead. On quiet evenings, Ella would walk me home. We didn't talk much on those walks. We didn't need to. One night, as we locked the cafe, she stood by the door and looked at me. "You always knew, didn't you? That I'd find my way back." I smiled at her, the way I did when she was little, and asked if the stars could hear her dreams. "No," I said. "But I knew I'd still be here, if you ever did." Above the register, there was a new photo, me, Sophia, Ella. Standing side by side behind the counter. Below it, in chalk, were words I hadn't written but felt as if I had. "Home is not where they keep you. It's where they remember you were never gone." And that night, in my small room above the flowers, I watched the branches bend in the wind and felt, not that the story had ended, but that I had finally arrived at its center.